Asher and Penland on W4CY Radio.
Hell's gates are open, the flames are rushing in. Take the time, look around to see that you have sinned. Broken hearts, broken dreams, standing by the cross. Take a stand and fight to win, there always is a loss. Hand in hand, we march into the storm.
This is the Pipe Man here on the Adventures of Pipe Man W4CY Radio, and I'm very excited about our next guest because, man, this band I've been listening to since the 80s and was always one of my favorites, and I love how we have 80s badass metal bands putting out new music in 2025, and that is no different for the Rod. So let's welcome to the show, David. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Happy to be here. Really.
I
Thank
still
you.
have my Wild Dogs vinyl. So I love that we are coming out with Wild Dogs Unchained. That is so cool.
We figure we probably, at this point of this game, we probably should unchain them.
Yeah,
and
right?
let them be free,
There you go.
because there's been a lot of years they've been in cages, they've been in chains, they've been held up. We've been keeping them tied down, and now it's time to let them go free.
I think it's a perfect time to let them go free to go after all the idiot stuff that's going on in the world. Like, you could just let them go and maybe they'll fix the world for us.
I know. I wish it was going to be that easy, but I don't know. It's really the world is really in a bad state. Yeah, it's too bad, but there's nothing much we can do about it. I mean, we can protest and we can complain, and I can write songs that are protest songs and songs about all that, but it's really not going to do anything. But it's good to speak up, speak your piece and let people know how you feel about it.
And the music is therapy anyway, regardless of if ever it's going to fix things. It's therapy for you, the artist. It's therapy for us, the listener. And I think that's all that counts. And one of the best things about 2025 is I think metal is bigger now than it was for us back in the 80s. It's more like, I love going to shows and I see our generation there with their kids, with their grandkids. Like, I've brought my grandkids to shows and festivals and my kids, and you wouldn't have had that back in the 80s. Like, I wouldn't go see a 60-year-old band in the 80s, but now it's cool.
It's definitely a different world, obviously, but I found that, like, in the live shows that we've done, there's been such a broad range of age groups. I mean,
right?
Some of the younger fans are probably weren't even born, back when we were in our heyday of doing things in the beginning of it all. So it is really great to know that the music holds up, and that everybody stays there, because there's people that were there back in the day, like yourself, that remember it from the beginning, and there's all ages in between, so it just tells you that the music does hold up. It's a brotherhood, and I mean that in the word of female, male, whatever, of people that like the music, and follow it. So it is a good feeling.
Oh, yeah. I love that, because I remember going to shows back in the 80s, and I would have you only saw people your own age. Even the bands were your own age, and so I think it's so cool when I look around at a festival nowadays and there's 100,000 people, and you can't pick who is who there, age or otherwise. It's not like that gatekeeper thing we had back in the 80s. We are one big brotherhood, one big family now.
Yeah, it is. It is a good feeling, when you go to the shows and see all the people. It's really great.
So
the thing is with the fans is, no matter what country you go to, it's basically the fans are the same. I mean, you can in a different country. You could be in a different country, but when you go to the show, you can't really tell, what country you're in because the fans are all the same. You know,
Yeah.
there's no difference in them. So there's definitely a continuity there of people that are into it.
And does it kind of blow your mind too when you go to all these different countries and they don't speak English, but they can sing every word back to you?
Yeah, it is. It is pretty amazing when you're on stage and you can see the people singing along, especially when it's in countries that, you're not, it's not the US, you're not speaking, they're not speaking English. So it is pretty amazing to see them do that. I mean, obviously they know the meaning of it, even though they may be singing it in their foreign language, but they do know the meaning, which means a lot.
And that's important because that's what helps us is the meaning to these songs, and that's what's beautiful about metal and always has been is the songs had meaning and they were about real things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think, for me, as a writer, I mean, back in the day, the thing was to write about partying and about sex, drugs, and rock and roll and the whole thing, And now it's changed to a point for me as a writer, anyways. And you can probably be able to hear it on this latest album of ours. I've become more of a person that needs to write about the way I feel about what the world is what's going on in the world today, and maybe what we can do about it. But just to be able to express your feelings a little bit more, other than what time's the party start,
Right.
So it is a little bit more to it now because the world is so different, and it's good to express your feelings, and it's good to know when people agree with like what you're trying to put across in a song. So
100%. And that's what I love about this new album is every song has a meaning that I live by, and then of course you have World on Fire. I mean, I wake up in the morning and I feel the world is on fire.
Definitely when you watch the news,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I try to stay away now. It's like ignorance is bliss. Like last year, I was in Costa Rica for 3 months, and my brother calls me. He goes, "Did you see the news?" And I'm like, "No," and I don't give a shit. I'm going surfing. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
Because it's like it doesn't change. I'd rather not be so like these people that are obsessed with the news. I don't think they're living a very happy life being obsessed with it. Like, I want to be aware of what's going on, but I don't need to watch it 24/7.
No, but because it puts you in like a lot of times it puts you in a depressed mood. I mean, the news is there to show you, like from what I gather, like they always want to show you the negative of what's going on.
Right.
Once in a while there's a positive in there, but it's always the negative. Who's getting killed? Where the shootings are, what about the war, how many got killed in this bombing and that bombing, so it's like if you start your day off with that, I think it's very difficult to like continue on with like some kind of positive attitude, even though it might not affect you, like yourself in the town that you live in, but you could see the world, what's going on, like, yeah, it's depressing. You can't really, I don't hardly ever watch the news. I might put it on in the morning just a little bit to see, well, who might have died, and who might have, this might happen. But other than that, to get involved in what's going on in the world, you kind of need to know,
Yeah.
Some of the songs that I wrote on this album are on in the world, and how we should feel about it. And again, that's just my feelings, if nobody likes the album or nobody likes the lyrics or whatever, it doesn't really matter to me. It's like, those are my feelings,
Yeah.
and I feel good about them. So that's what people should kind of project during their daily routine is, don't be afraid of what to say or to feel the way you feel about things, rather than to be controlled by what's going on in the news of the day.
It's funny. I was just thinking about that this morning, that before we had the internet and social media and cell phones and all this stuff, you know, things didn't affect us the same way because it wasn't hammered in our face 24/7, and because you could kind of live your life a bit instead of being connected to all this negativity. And you could, even there's certain things that went on back then that we didn't know about, and you know what, not knowing about it was almost better because there was nothing we could do about it. you
True.
know
That's true. I mean, we never really, in the start of all, when we started back in the 80s, I mean, there was no net, there was no internet.
right.
You didn't know if you had fans in Spain or France or any other countries because there was no internet. You can't always, and you still, I don't know, you couldn't rely on record companies to really give you the right answers as far as, how many records you're selling where.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sound negative against record companies, but in reality, there is a lot of negativity when it comes to record companies and artists and all that, as far as I'm concerned. That's just me. But once the internet came into, once we had like kind of this Rod's reunion, when all of a sudden the internet was there, and we realized we had these fans that were in all these different countries. We never knew that before. We never knew it. So it is a different world. And
Well,
the
there's the positive of it, right? Then and certain
Absolutely.
good things, you
Yeah,
know.
definite positive. I mean, as far as talking about the band, I mean, when we had we took a little hiatus. We took a little time off. When we didn't play for a while, it wasn't a nasty situation where we didn't get along or that kind of thing. Fighting. We just felt like we need to get away from it for a while. I mean,
Yeah.
because I think for me, and I think I can speak for the three of us at the time, the business part of, like somebody once told me, the music business is two words: music and business.
Mm-hmm.
Business part of it got to us. It's like, you know, we're in it because we want to make music. Originally I remember playing with Ronnie in the early days with Elf. Like we were in the band. We didn't have a band because we thought we wanted to be superstars. We wanted to, make a lot of money. We did it because we love to do it. And that's what I know myself and the people that I've worked with, that's what we did. We did it because we loved it. We didn't do it thinking about we're going to be millionaires. So when you start out, when you do it in that way, it changes things. So we got away from it for a while. When we had a reunion after a few years, I started doing solo albums, and Carl, and I hadn't seen Carl and Gary at the time was the bass player. I hadn't seen either one of those guys in a while. And Carl had heard my latest solo album at the time, and he gave me a phone call and said, "Geez, I just heard your solo album, and it makes me want to play again." I said, "Well, why don't we do a couple of reunion gigs, a couple of small bars locally for the hell of it." And I said, "I'll try to get a hold of Gary and see if he's interested." So we did that, and we did one in my hometown, and we did one in Ithaca. Ithaca's only about a 20-mile ride from here, and that's where Gary lived. And we found out that even though these little clubs that held like maybe barely 100 people, that people were coming from everywhere, and because the internet, was there now, and people knew, hey, the Rods are playing again, and they're bringing all of the albums of vinyl for us to sell and sign and whatnot. And we're thinking, geez, this is incredible. We never really knew we had, these fans. So, after we did those two shows, we said, hey, let's just keep doing some shows if we can. We never got another manager. We never solicited, we never worked with a booking agency or any kind of agency or any management or anything. We did everything ourselves. And we weren't real serious about making it a full-time thing. And all of a sudden, we started getting phone calls from like different countries, like, what do we have to give you to come play our festival in Brazil? Or, these countries that we had never been to in our heyday.
Wow.
And, 99.9% of the time we would tell them we just need plane tickets. We need hotel rooms. We need food. We need transportation, and we need, obviously there's always stage setup, gear provided. And, mostly all the times we never even asked for a performance fee because we wanted to go do these jobs. They were in different countries we'd never been in. And we would go for expenses, but it was great because we got to go and we got to play for fans that we never knew we had fans in Brazil. We never knew
Right.
we never had fans in Norway and all these other countries that we had never gone to before. So it was really great. So we started doing that like every summer. We'd do like 8 to 10 shows, and they would all be like in and out. Maybe fly in somewhere, do 1 or 2 shows, 1 or 2 festivals. Maybe one was a club gig, one was a festival, and fly back. We never did an extensive, and we didn't want to do any extensive touring at the time. However, in 2011, we did do 30 days with the Dio Disciples. That was Ronnie's old band, after he passed away.
Yeah.
It was all through Europe, and that was great. And that was 30 days, and that was like, geez, we haven't done 30 days on a bus in a long time, so we were going to handle it. But we handled it pretty, actually pretty easily, it was pretty nice. And we had a good time. But that's basically, like we started in this whole, I get carried away sometimes and I lose myself in this talking, but the internet, changed things a lot, for negative and but a lot for good. A lot for
Yeah.
good.
Well, it is true. It's funny too. Like I do coverage at music festivals all over the US, UK, and Europe. And when I go to Europe, it's like I'm going back to the 80s. Like you turn on the radio there and they're playing the stuff that would have been back in the 80s. And it's like some of these bands that I thought were gone.
Mm.
I'm like, oh, they've just been in Europe all these years.
Yeah.
And the fans there are just like diehards, it's unbelievable.
But it's always been that way since the beginning. Hendrix had to go to Europe to make it. A lot of bands had to go there because the people in Europe are more, to me, are more open-minded, and more willing to listen to what you have. People in the U.S., are kind of like, I don't want to say, I don't know if spoiled is the right word or not, but they're not as apt to like listen to something new, to give it a chance, So a lot of groups really had to go, a lot of big groups, and I can mention Hendrix as one, but a lot of groups had to go to Europe to actually be heard, to make a noise enough to make it big into the United States and then worldwide, So Europe is always more hardcore and more dedicated to listening and being open-minded about the music.
Yeah, and the key word there is listening, because we live in this mentality today of the track mentality. And listen for 2 seconds. Listen, some of my favorite songs ever, if I only listened to 2 seconds of a song, I would never know the song. Like it sometimes it took a minute to get to the part like you're like, oh my God, and I think they appreciate that stuff in Europe more as well. And you're so right, because I thought COVID would change things over here in the US, because it was before COVID. Everybody was complaining about every festival and blah, blah, blah. And they're still doing it now. And it's like, one of the things that blows my mind, to your point, is if a band drops out for whatever reason, how many people get on here in the US and they're like, oh, now I don't even want to go to the festival. The only reason I was going for that band. And I'm like thinking, that's dumb. First of all, the reason to go to a festival is you find all these new bands. That's how I find all my new favorites. And second of all, they're not playing their normal set that they would for their concert. So if that's who you want to see, just go to their concert if that's the only band you want to see.
Yeah.
Whereas Europe, like, it blows my mind. We were just talking about in UK too. I was just at Bloodstock in the UK, and there were bands playing at 10:30 in the morning. And those, as you know, those festivals, people are like partying all night long or having fun all night long. It's not like a limited time. And there were huge crowds for these bands that nobody ever heard of at 10:30 in the morning. And that says it all right there. Like, that's the way it should be for all of them, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's the way, look at, when you think back about Woodstock, a lot of those bands were unknown. I mean, Santana and all those bands, they played Woodstock. And once they played Woodstock and people heard their music, that gave them that boost, to
Yeah.
be successful. So, and I think, in today's world where you're doing it, and there's so many festivals, like everywhere, and
Yeah.
if a lot of times a band that's maybe relatively well known has to cancel out, say, right? And then all of a sudden the agency that's booked us, we got to come up with a band. So they pull a band from the roster that, maybe not that well known, throw them in that slot on the festival, and they get to play in front of a lot of people. And it gives that band a really chance to like expose themselves to like a new audience,
Yeah.
So it is good, I mean, there's a lot, so much going out there, there's so many different types of music, obviously, as far as even as hard rock, heavy metal goes. And you need to be out there and expose yourself. And now that the internet is, we have the internet, and it's so easy to record and so easy to get your music out there that, musicians can do that, without having to sacrifice themselves and being under control of a record label. Because back in the day, you couldn't be heard unless you had a record deal with a record
Right.
label, so now that's not the case. You can make a record you can record on your computer, you can put it out there on the internet and be heard. And as far as booking jobs or agencies or whatever, I'm sure you can do that on your own too, or get hooked up with an agency. But it's much easier now, for a band to get their music out there than it was back in the day when you were basically at the mercy of a record label.
Yeah, totally. And that's one of the things I do love about today, because to your point earlier, there's the business side and then there's the artist side. And I've always believed, going back to the 80s when I sat backstage on the Sunset Strip when they'd sign some of these bands, you know what? The suits should do the business end and the artists should do the creative end. Never, ever should the business people tell the artists how to create music.
No, I know. I mean, there's just so many stories that, prove that point. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, a lot of times the musicians aren't, money is not their object.
Right.
They're not doing it for money. They're doing it for the love of it. So in the end of the whole thing, the people that are running the business end are ones that end up making all the money. So say in the end of a person's career, if they are somewhat coached or handled or managed by someone that's going to be able to say, well, gee, you are making some money now. Let's kind of like do something right with it so that like later on in years, you're going to be taken care of or you're going to have money. And I think a lot of bands, were taken advantage of in their early days because record companies and publishing companies demanded so much from the artist. And the artist is the one that's creating the whole thing. That's
Totally.
making, you know what I mean? And the artist was always the one at the bottom of the totem pole getting paid. So, it's different, and it's sad in a way because music is an art form. It's just like anything. It's like if you're an artist, if you're a painter, or any kind of art form, a dancer, an actor, or whatever, you're doing it for the love of your art, and it's very easy to be taken advantage of people that are doing it where their motivation is only to make money.
Yeah.
And if they feel that they can make money with you doing what you're doing, then they will take advantage of it,
Yeah. And to your point, like back in the 80s, I saw it plenty, that these record labels would feed the artists the party lifestyle, the women, the drugs, the alcohol, the everything, for that exact reason, in my opinion. So they could make a ton of money and the artist has no clue what's going on and gets screwed over.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's why you need a good, honest manager at the time, which, if you have a good, honest manager, you're lucky, but, you've heard horror stories about even relatives that were big artists, managers that got screwed, So,
Mm-hmm.
there's just so many variables, so many different points about it. It is it's basically a dirty business, so the music business, I love it. It's been my whole life, really. I've written songs and recorded and, played out live and been, it's been my whole life, really. And I love it, but it can be pretty dirty also.
And that's why it's great nowadays for an artist like you. You can put out the music you want to put out. You don't have to listen to anybody. You can just be your own creative self. And here, the end result is Wild Dogs Unchained, which is a badass album. And I'm always impressed with artists that can still write new music this many years later. I sit there and I think to myself, I'm like, wow, how do they come up with new material after all these years?
Yeah.
But it somebody like you proves that it can be done. Of course, there's plenty to talk about nowadays.
Yeah. And, the thing is, like, this will go back just for me. And like when I started playing in Ronnie's band, it was before even it was Elf, it was Ronnie Dio and the Prophets. And from that whole transition from Ronnie Dio and the Prophets to the Electric Elves, the Elves, and then the Elf, the writing process began there for us, and even those guys in the band were 5 years older than me. So I really got the benefit of a great education from being, with Ronnie and those guys. And, Ronnie became like my brother, and
Nice.
the thing is like, writing is something that, like, when I had to write songs for the Rods, I had to write songs that were basically designed for a 3-piece hard rock heavy metal band. They had a singer that was more of a stylist rather than a really good singer. Kind of like we've been categorized as like, an American Motorhead, which is a compliment to me. We've done quite a few gigs with Motorhead, and they're great guys, and I love the band. But, if I was is in a process of writing songs with Ronnie in the band as the singer, who is like the greatest singer of all times, you can write anything and he can sing it, and he'll sing it the best, So when you have to write a song that's, basically for a band that's, in an era of time that's, American type Motorhead, which you're singing about partying and, rock and roll and the whole thing, you have to write within that realm, so that people and the fans can, associate it with,
Yeah.
Once the Rods hadn't played, and one of the last jobs we did was last October, and it was in Australia, and we did 3 shows there, 3 different cities. But after when Ronnie passed away, and I got to see a lot of Ronnie the last 10 years of his life, we spent a lot of time together. And he was such an incredible lyricist and incredible musician and incredible singer, and his lyrics to every song really meant something, whether it was, like stand up and shout, or if it was something more serious, or if it was stuff that he did with Richie, in Rainbow, that was more mean, which was was an incredible combination with him and Richie. But, after that, I decided, like, I don't want to write at this stage of the game. I don't want to write about, like partying and rock and roll and stuff. I mean, yeah, I could write a Rods album that's going to be nothing but thrashing away at partying and rock and roll. But I wanted to write something that was meaningful, like Ronnie did. All his lyrics were meaningful. They meant something. And in the last few years, I mean, World on Fire was written. I wrote that a couple of years ago. I mean, the album's been delayed, so some of these songs were written a year or two ago. And the song like Tears for the Innocent, where that's basically about all these innocent people getting killed, the bombing and everything, losing their homes, losing everything, So I wanted to write something that was more not really Rod style, because when you hear some of these songs, compared to like songs 10, 15, 20 years ago that the Rods put out, they're totally different, you know. it's kind of like
I think they have more substance.
there's more substance. It's like, hey, did the rods finally grow up? Or, you know, I mean, we're not wild dogs anymore. We're like, we're like letting them go or unchaining them. But I wanted to write songs that meant something, whether there's some good rock songs on the album, but they're rock and roll songs. But I wanted to also have some songs on there that meant something that was going on in the world, and I know that's what Ronnie did when he wrote his songs. His songs, really meant something, even though his capabilities, his vocabulary, his mind is like so far above anything I could possibly do, that I wanted to do that. I wanted to follow that path so that people that listen to it, either are going to go along with it and say, yeah, that's cool, I agree with that, or they're not. And that's basically what, people have always done with music. If you listen to a song, I love that song or I hate that song, or when it comes to that song on the album, I skip over it. I don't play it with the other songs. But anyways, that's I think what is important to me right now is to be able to put across in the songs that I write, and the handful of people that will get an opportunity to listen to the songs that actually want to listen to the songs. At least they're knowing like where my head's at and where the band's head's at right now. Because it is a big change when you listen to some of these songs on this album. But what
I think is key to what you're saying that will makes this album successful and good is that. So as an example, you take a band like Blink-182, okay, who was really, really popular. And when I saw them at a festival a few years ago, they were headlining the festival. A lot of the people were like, I really liked them when I was 15, but I can't relate now anymore, and I think that's kind of what is going on here is like, you can't write the same music you did in the 80s because we were all kids, and it's like you got to write something now that's more appropriate for the time that you're in your life, that would make sense because then it's believable, it's more believable to write music the way you're writing now than if you were to write the same thing that you did in the 80s.
Yeah. This particular new album has a couple of remakes on it. One of them, well, one's Hurricane, which has always been one of the most popular songs. And, Carl came up with the idea, let's do a couple of remakes on here. So, I wasn't really up for it at first, but he goes, Hurricane is a song that everybody wants to hear. Let's do a remake. And we have a new bass player now, Freddy, who's been in the band a couple of years. And the other song was, one song was Make Me a Believer, which it was written like many, many years ago, and we never really did the song, never really recorded it. It was on a live project album that we did where Shmuel Abigail at the time sang the song. And Freddie, the bass player, now said, oh, we should do that song. It's a great song. So I said, okay. And so we did that song. And Wild Dogs is the other song that we did that is an older song. Wild Dogs is a very popular album, but for some reason, when we played live, we never played the song Wild Dogs. And that's because every time we worked it out to try to play it live, it never really sounded like, like it should. It never sounded like we're making it sound heavy, So Carl, for a long time, and Carl's the one who wrote that song. And he would say to me, Rock, you got to redo that song. You got to rewrite it. You got to rearrange it. You got to do something and make it sound heavy, make it good so we can play it live. And it's like, geez, it's like for a year, it seems like for years, I kind of like let that go in one ear and out the other. I never really thought about doing, well, what am I going to do with this song? That kind of thing. So before we recorded this last album, he said, geez, if there's something you can do with Wild Dogs, So I said, okay. So I finally sat down with a guitar and I tried to do something to it. So I rearranged the song, changed it, the lyrics a little bit. And And I showed it to Carl, and he loved it. He goes, "Oh, that's great! You know, it's so much heavier. It's so much better. It's so we got to we have to record that song." So that's why we did that song,
Nice.
and it does sound a lot better than the original. It's different, obviously, but it's a song we probably could do live now because of the arrangement's a little different. But that was a popular song, so those are like three of the older, well, two of them anyways, the older songs that we did. The newer songs are just basically new songs, but it's funny because no matter, and it's happened a number of times, you know, people want, it's just like when you go see Judas Priest, you want to hear Living After Midnight, you know,
Right.
nothing going on, you know, those kind of songs that were big hits at the time, you know. There's songs that we've done through the years that were songs that we'd put on the last cut of an album because we thought it was the worst song that we ever came up with. You know, we just put it on as a filler, as the 10th or 11th song, and we never played it live, you know. And we'd have somebody at a show come up to us and go, "Hey, are you guys going to play such and such a song?" And we look at, you know, it's like, no. And it's like that song, you know, it's like, you know, we would never think of playing that song. We hated that song. We didn't think it was a good song, but that was somebody else's favorite song,
Right.
you know, which is, so you never know, you know, what it's going to be like with the songs. But it is important for me right now to write a song that has some meaning to it. And I've been criticized in the past for, you know, writing protest songs, you know, so I'm not really a protest songwriter, but I want to feel like I write something that has some meaning that other people can relate to, and it can express my feelings as to the way I feel about a certain situation.
I think it's great. Like, I think when people say that artists should not use their pulpit for their opinions, I call bullshit. That's exactly who should. You know, like, who else is going to speak out to a large crowd for those opinions? And you know what? Somebody may not agree with your opinions, and that's okay. But then there's other people that will agree with your
Yeah,
opinions.
yeah.
You know, and that's your people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So, tell everybody how they can reach out to you guys on the web, on social media, get the new album that just dropped, or is dropping in a couple days, I mean, and where they can catch you live and all that good stuff.
Well, let's see. I since we started getting calls from, you know, people that want us to play here now, we've kind of like, instead of, you know, people calling three different phone numbers, it's kind of like put Carl in charge of like taking all the calls, you know, so it's like one connection. And then that way, when he gets a call and says, "Hey," he'll call us and we'll say, "Hey, somebody from Brazil wants us to come play this festival. This is what they're offering, blah, blah, blah. What do you want to do?" We talk about it. And we say, we make a decision. He gets back. So it's one contact. As far as like where you can get the album, I guess the normal places. I mean, YouTube, whatever the internet. You know, I'm not really a person that's like very. I don't know what the right words to say.
It's basically everywhere. If you
Yeah,
know where to find your music, it's there.
you can find the music where you're going to find the music. You know, you just put in like right now, they've released. I guess "World on Fire" is out as like the single before
Yeah,
their actual release. I mean, people have asked me like, "Where can I hear it?" I said, "Type in "World on Fire," the Rods." You know,
exactly.
it's going to come up somewhere where you're going to be able to hear the song. As far as live shows go, we don't have anything scheduled right now. We actually didn't play any live shows this last summer because we're supposed to have this album completed, uh, mixed, mastered, artwork, and everything done by the end of this last August, because the album was supposed to come out in last January. You know, I'm talking about the August prior. It
Yeah.
was supposed to come out last January. So we didn't take any, you know, and a lot of these dates are booked a year ahead of time. So we like turned down some dates because we needed to devote the time to finishing this album. You know, for me, it's like oh, we're going to do, the record label picked up the option for the other label. Oh, I got to sit down. I got to write 10 songs. It's not something that I can do in like 5 minutes. So it's like there was pressure there. And granted, I'm always, I always have ideas. I always have titles. It's just like putting them together and then making them a song that has some kind of meaning. It takes time. So, we didn't take any jobs for this last summer because of that. We wanted to devote all the time because we had a deadline. As it turned out, the label had its own problems within itself. The album was never released when it was supposed to be released, so we really got pushed back, and so we actually lost out on some time. We could have played some live shows, and we saved our time because we did get the album done and everything was ready and turned into the label by the end of a year ago, this last August. So right now, we're hoping that when people hear this album, it will generate some kind of interest that they want us to do some shows for next year.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah, I'm hoping because I miss playing. The three of us do, and I miss playing. I miss being out there. That's like the drug, Yeah, totally. The drug being out there on stage with the audience, with the fans, communicating with them, that's the drug that keeps you going, and I miss it. So I hope that this new album will generate some interest with some promoters and some, people that are in charge of booking different places that'll put us in some areas where that, people like yourself and people from around the world are, we're doing interviews with. It's like, even places now I've never played before, and we want to go play there,
Yeah.
But in order to go play there, you have to be, you have to be in the interest of some promoter that's putting on a festival or something there, So I guess if enough people listen to the album and enough people, if the album becomes popular enough, and then the promoters will see that this album is popular enough so that the band can drop. It's like a whole vicious circle. But anyways, long story short, I'm hoping that we get to come and play some shows next year.
Well, I do all the Danny Wimmer festivals in the States, so I'm putting it right out there right now that Wimmer needs to get the rods on the Danny Wimmer festivals.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good.
There you go.
That'd be great. Most of these places that we play are out of the country. It's like weird. It's like hardly ever doing a festival of any kind in the States. Back in the day, we did a lot of touring with Judas Priest, down through the South. Ozzy, we did dates with a lot of people, and some of them were in the States. But I'm not sure if like the heavy metal scene, what it's like, if it's changed, in certain areas of the States, because when you take the whole United States compared to the whole size of Europe, there's quite a difference in size,
Yeah.
So when you're in Europe and you're driving from country to country, it's like driving from state to state here.
Totally.
Not even as far. So you can do a lot of different countries as far as like if you're driving from, in the United States, New York to LA, it's a long way. So
no doubt.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where it is. We love playing in the States, love playing in the other countries too, and I'm just hoping that, we get a chance to do that for this coming year.
I hope you do too. I'll be there. I love it. I love the new album, and everybody has to check it out. And I'm so happy that you guys are writing new music that is relevant to today. Yeah. And still rocking our world. So thank you for that. And thanks for being on the adventures of Pipe Man.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sure thing.
Hey, all you rockers. This is David Rock Feinstein from the Rods, and you're listening to The Pipe Man on W4CY Radio.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipe Man on W4CY Radio.